Well, everyone, we now have all the Samsung Galaxy mainline phones from the Samsung Galaxy S20 all the way up to the Samsung Galaxy S25. And I kind of wanted to do a synopsis comparison, not a deep comparison by any means, but just a little tiny comparison between all these phones and kind of show you what each one kind of brought all the way up to the latest generation and how the Samsung Galaxy S25 compares against all these at a very high level. I've already made like deep, kind of researched videos between these two phones, like in general, one by one, but not entirely with all of them. Now, when we take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S25, this is clearly the best phone Samsung's made. It has everything going for it. But I will tell you, when the Samsung Galaxy S20 originally came out back in 2020, this was a very big upgrade to Galaxy S20. Now, there are some similarities when you look at both these phones. They both have pretty bright displays. Obviously, the Galaxy S25 is just way brighter. On top of that, if you take a look at the sides though, the Galaxy S20 had this the Galaxy S20 had this curved side to it, where the S25 is actually flat. Some people may like this flat side, but this, curved edge glass on the Galaxy S20 always looked very nice to me. And since then, they've kind of removed it, to be honest, but the S20 was the last one to have it. And now Samsung's bringing it back with the Edge lineup, again, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. But guess what? The Galaxy S20 had this, and it actually makes the phone feel really, really good. The Galaxy S20 also had a higher resolution panel than the Galaxy S25. That was something that was pretty crazy. And the Samsung Galaxy S20 had a microSD card slot. Unfortunately, the Galaxy S25 doesn't have that. But probably the biggest kind of turnoff for me with the Galaxy S20 is the backside. Samsung has really made their phones look so much better on the back from the Galaxy S21. But the Galaxy S20 definitely looks a little bit outdated, I would say, especially on the backside. But the front side, the Galaxy S20 still looks pretty good for the most part. I'm still a fan of the S20 when it kind of comes down to it. And then we get to the S21. Now, this phone was a very interesting device. From the S21 to the S25, very big difference. You're getting a much faster phone, much more powerful. The battery life on this phone is so much better too. But the front side, there's some similarity here. You see that both have fairly similar sized displays, but the S21 feels a little bit bigger because of the bezel around it. But they're both flat displays nonetheless. But you can see the S21 definitely looks like a bigger sized phone and noticeably bigger because of the amount of bezel on it. Same hole punch displays and everything like that. You're getting 120 Hz on both 1080p here, flat displays. USB Type-C on the bottom, both of them basically are missing out on the same thing with no microSD card slot. The backside is interesting. The Galaxy S25 has this frosted glass back, where the Galaxy S21 has this frosted plastic back. That right there is a pretty insane difference in and of itself. If you were to go through and actually pick up a phone, that right there is probably going to be a little bit of a, kind of like not a sad thing, but it is going to be kind of an interesting thing kind of going on here too. Because if you're going to go through and like get a phone like this, you're definitely going to feel like both these phones are missing out, or the Galaxy S21 is missing out on this, more premium feeling. Both of them support wireless charging and reverse wireless charging, but that was also something else that was very interesting here, because as you're going through and picking up a phone, the S21 still feels pretty good, but the S25 clearly is a better one. But then we start getting to the Galaxy S22, and this is where Samsung really started increasing kind of their phone feeling, like how premium their phones feel, and they started really making some really big improvements on the exterior. So here for sure, again, same side, like panels and everything like that, some differences here and there. Like there's not really too much else here, but it's just the backside again. They finally gave us a frosted glass back. The S22 was the first one to bring a frosted glass back for the mainline Galaxy S series, and that right there was a very big difference. Going from frosted plastic to a frosted glass back, in my opinion, was a very big change. And I do think if you are going to go through and pick up a phone, this was a very, very worthwhile change to say the least. Although with the Galaxy S25, that one feels a lot more premium, the S22, I think, made some really big improvements when it came down to that side as well, which I think is another very big thing. And then with the S23, this is where I think Samsung started really, really doing a really good job at. This phone on the S23 was giving you a little bit more capability when it came down from the S22. The S22's biggest problem was the chipset and how optimized that chipset basically wasn't for that phone. The S23 basically aligned itself a little bit more with the S24, but it was a big improvement from the S22 as well. And then we finally get the S24. The S24, in my opinion, is such a solid phone. This one looks and feels so good. And when you actually look at these phones, there's so much overlap. Like these two phones share a lot of similarity, like same size display, same way they feel. Even when you take a look at the sides of these phones, I mean, they look almost identically the same. The top portion is relatively the same. Even the holes are the same. The bottom, I mean, look at that. They're like identically the same type of phone. There's virtually no difference at all, especially on the backside. Like you would not be able to tell which one is which. If you didn't know this one was the S25 already, these two may be S24s. You might not even know that. So that's kind of the crazy part. These two phones look identically the same when it kind of comes down to it from that side. So I think that is in and of itself a really big thing to kind of keep in mind there too. So I've had a really good time with my Galaxy S24. I feel like this is a really good phone, but the S25 definitely is a really big improvement for a fact. So if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, you're definitely going to feel like all these phones have made some pretty big improvements from that side as well. But that's just from the exterior. There were also lots of improvements from the performance side as well. So with the Samsung Galaxy S20, this one had an older chipset, the 865 chipset. Then we had the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset here, then the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset here. Then we started getting the 8 Gen 2, 8 Gen 3, and now the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. And definitely you're going to be getting fast performing phones from these three generations, very fast phones from these two, and the fastest phone is going to be on the Galaxy S25. If you still kind of pick up a Galaxy S20, this thing is still going to be fast enough for the most part. Like you're going to be able to do a lot of things with it. But even when you kind of just compare it from app opening speeds, like look at this. Let's open up the Google Play Store, which is notoriously a fast app to open. 3, 2, 1. Even on an application like this, I don't even actually know if that even showed anything. But if we play a game or if we open up some other application, I'm sure for the most part you would be able to see that the Galaxy S20 probably wouldn't be as fast as something like the Galaxy S25, because most of the time you're going to be getting a faster phone from the current generation. There could be some times like just like that right there, the Galaxy S20 was faster. That's kind of insane. But a majority of the time, I would probably say that you're probably going to be getting a faster phone from something like the Samsung Galaxy S25. So when you're going through years and years of generation of opening up these applications and games, again, you're just naturally going to be getting a much faster phone on the Galaxy S25. But the S20, even for this phone being as old as it is, it still holds up very, very well. And that's the thing that Samsung has done pretty well, except maybe with the Galaxy S22, but with all these other phones, they've done a really, really good job with. But then you get to something like the S21, and the S21 was notorious of having a really, really good chipset inside of this phone. Whatever you're really going to do with it, you're going to be getting a really fast experience with. And I think that's another really cool thing to kind of keep in mind here. Because if you're going to go through and use a Galaxy S21 and compare it against the Galaxy S25, you are going to be getting still a pretty good performing chipset from something like the Samsung Galaxy S21. The S22 was the one that was notorious of not really being the best here. This one was going to be giving you a little bit of a slower type of experience, and that chipset was giving you pretty poor battery life for the most part. It really just wasn't that optimized, and that was kind of the biggest problem with this type of phone. It was a pretty good phone from a hardware perspective and even internally a little bit, but then it quickly became kind of an outdated device, and that's just kind of what ends up happening if you're going through and getting a phone like this. The S23 is one of those phones I'm recommending so much this year. This is such an amazing phone. It has so much capability. And if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, this is by far one of those types of devices that I look at as being a really solid option. With that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with 8 gigs of RAM, it's a very, very good phone. And then with the Galaxy S24, it's a tremendous phone too. This is an amazing phone. There's not really that big of a difference between the S24 and the S25. That's kind of just what ends up happening here. But between these two phones, I will definitely tell you the S25 is way better. So that's kind of how all these phones kind of compare in my personal opinion. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.